praisefulwarwear.com.
Hello, family life coaches across the continent of Africa and in the diaspora. My name is Praise for Warwear, your number one family life strategist across the globe. I am super excited to be joining you again today. Whether you're in South Africa or you're in Kenya or you're in Zimbabwe or you are in Tanzania, whatever part of Africa you are in, the Anglophone, the Francophone, or even the Portuguese speaking part of Africa, I greet you. Well, over the years, in the last 24 years, I have worked on groundbreaking solutions for African family life coaches, pioneering an entire sector, leading the move for Afrocentric family life solutions, creating an entire sector in Africa's most populous black nation or the most populous black nation in the world. And so I'm super excited to be having this chat and this conversation that I believe that is going to help us, because one of the things we have to understand is that if Africa's got to grow, the change has got to start from our family. We've looked up to African leaders for too long, help expecting them to produce a miracle that is not within their radar or that they cannot really produce, because every African leader we don't like, the ones we curse, the ones we talk down, the ones we hate to remember, and the ones we love to forget are all products of our families. The ones we love to remember are also products of our family. And so, if we have to consistently replicate leaders who truly love Africa, then we have to check the family system and the family structure that is churning out this type of leaders. Every time my African brothers complain about the leadership in their country, I'm asking, can you do a deep dive into how the person was raised? Because a traumatized child who's become a traumatized adult is going to traumatize an entire nation. And so today, we start this conversation, the African Family Life Chart. And today, I'm going to be muting the conversation on Afrocentric solution for African problems. Now, you see, I live in the US at the moment. I've lived in Nigeria, I've lived in the UK, I've lived in Canada, and I've lived in America, right? And I've walked across different cultures, studying the cultural nuances of the different African cultures and African nations and various continents of the world. I've been privileged to work with clients across the five continents of the world. And it's so interesting to study culture and to study the dynamics of families across these various cultures. And it's very interesting to see how a lot of the things we load as Africans and we want to dissociate from is what some other people celebrate and what they attribute their successes to, right? And so it's this conversation, it's going to be me uncensored, and I'm going to be saying it the way it is, right? And so one of the things I've noticed with us in the early days when I was starting out, before we started running what is now regarded as the most complete or the most comprehensive certification program for family life professionals across the continent of Africa and in the diaspora, right? A lot of the things I found is that many of our people wanted a US certified program or a UK certified, they want to be UK certified coaches or US certified coaches. And so you see that a lot. And what has happened over time is that the West have leveraged that to take advantage of our people. And I do not blame them, they're doing their business. And so you see our people, I mean, it's like someone who wants to do politics in Africa and he goes to Kennedy School of Governance in Harvard, right? The school is fantastic. The curriculum is great. The only problem is that when you graduate from that school, you will never be able to win a local government election in Africa. Maybe even in Nigeria, you will not, what am I saying? Local government councillorship election. Why? Because what they are teaching you is best practice of what they have learned and what they have studied over time. Even their best practice right now with President Donald Trump is giving us, making us question and asking, hello, the leadership we learned at the Kennedy School of Governance is totally contradictory to what we are witnessing. And that's to tell you that societies evolve and that there's no society that is perfect. I mean, before I started living in America, said it's God's own country. So a lot of our people naturally feel, oh, once you get to America, you're going to be just be plucking money. But what America has done is create an environment where your potential can find expression. And so that what we lack in Africa is that we've not created that environment where the son of a nobody can become anybody, simply because of the kind of leadership and the structures and the framework we have. And so the same way, you're not likely going to win a local government election in Africa by going to study in Kennedy School of Governance. It's good for your CV, but then when it comes to application and practicality, you would see someone who is uneducated, according to you. He's never traveled out of Africa before, but that guy is going to call the shot. He's going to determine who wins an election, and you're not going to do anything about it with all your certificate. As a matter of fact, if you desire to, I've learned this the hard way, right? If you desire to win any election, you've got to go and defer to that guy. I mean, I remember my foray into politics many years ago because I felt, let's make a change in Nigeria. And so I went for this political meeting at the grassroots level, and I met some people at the ward level. I met the people there, and I was very upset at the caliber of people because they were unlearned, unlettered. And immediately I got in there, they say, oh, I should be writing the minutes of the meeting. They started calling me Alakowe. Alakowe in the Yoruba language means a learned fellow. Right. And so I was writing the minutes. And then I noticed that when they were about to read the minutes of the previous meeting, as they were reading that minutes, there was someone who looked at the lady who passed and started talking about the backside of that lady. Right. And then that was what dominated the meeting. Oh, I can't sleep with that lady. I can ask her out. I was very upset because it was a waste of my 2 hours of my precious life. Right. And the next time I went the following week, got to the meeting again, it was another distraction. We never got to talk about people, governance, transformation. And so I got upset and I stopped going. And in my mind, I mean, it was a waste of my life and waste of my time. Now, 6 months down the line, I was driving, and one of the people at the meeting saw me and he flagged me down. And it was like, oh, Alakawa, we didn't see you again. And I said, see, you guys are not talking about transformation. You're not talking about people. I can't waste my life on this. And the guy smiled. You know what he said to me? He said, when we see someone straight into a meeting who is a learned fellow, we know during election or when our uplines visit, they will likely pick that person because it's good for the optics and it can represent us very well. And he said, so we have been here for a long time, and because we are not educated, people like you jump the queue ahead of us and you become desirable to become governors. And say, so when people like you join, we create uncomfortable conversation to frustrate you out. Said that was exactly what we did. Said if you really, really want to make a change in politics, you have to learn the rules of engagement and you have to stay in there even when the situation becomes uncomfortable. I will never forget that. I thought I was wise, but I was the stupid one because they ran a program on me and I fell for it. That's how these things work. So let me come back to African Family Life chart. Now, over a period of time, our people are very crazy about, oh, certification in the US, certification in the UK. But the only problem is that those certification, principles are universal. Application is what is different. They did not have you in mind when they were being made. I mean, I remember we were at a conference one day. And we're discussing about a new certification program, and this was in America. And I raised my hand to say, the people that designed this new program, did they consider Africans when they were designing it? And there was no response. And I asked, have you ever seen any movie from Nollywood or Gollywood, which is the movie industry from Nigeria, which is one of the biggest, maybe the third after Hollywood and Bollywood, right? Gollywood is Ghana, right? And they had not seen it. So if you don't understand the nuances of the African family, the culture of the African, how do you design a certification program that can help an African heal from what you call mental health problem? Because, I mean, if you see the way we live our life, you almost think that all of us have mental health issues. For example, a therapist who will never believe that there's a 7-year-old somewhere in Accra, Ghana, or 7-year-old somewhere in Soweto or in Lagos, Nigeria, can be hawking gala or hawk plantain chips and is running after a boss repeatedly every day to make enough sale to go to school. If that is not on his radar, if you bring that boy, from Africa and you bring him to America and you put him in the class, they're almost going to diagnose him of ADHD almost immediately. Why? Because he's restless. Now, they would not know that that boy, by running after Danfo or our bosses in Africa regularly is become unconsciously competent and becoming very restless, right? And so there's nothing wrong with him, it's conditioning. And so you're going to think something is wrong with that boy. And so what you're going to be diagnosing, will be problematic because you don't even understand the premise and you don't understand the cultural reality. And that's why if you check many of the psychometry that are family life related, especially the ones that seek to help couples work together, you'd realize that you will never see anything about gender inequality, which is a big deal. You will never see any psychometry that incorporates the fact that who cooks is still a big deal in Africa, right? That a lot, in fact, that is a deal breaker in some marriages where we solely expect the women to cook. And some of the women are saying, no, you go cook, right? That some women actually get beaten by asking their husband to help them check what is on fire, right? And so if that is not showing up in your research, there is no way you can create solutions for that. And that's why I'm a stickler for let's create Afrocentric solution for African problems. It's not as if we will not draw inspiration from what has been done. I mean, every research is not conclusive, right? It's ongoing. We will draw inspiration. We will, I mean, for example, we teach family system engineering, which is culturally relevant, to the Africans and African diaspora, as a matter of fact, culturally relevant to the Black race. However, part of the premise of family system engineering programming is from the family systems theory, right? And so you can improve on what has been done, but not that we copy everything hook, line, and sinker. You make us look like there is nothing about us that is good because before you brought your culture, Africa had what worked, right? And we had a system of marriage. We have a system of preparing people for marriage. As a matter of fact, in some culture, they have what we call the fattening room, where you prepare the girl child for marriage. You add a system where a boy who doesn't have a farm and who doesn't have a band cannot even show up for marriage. And you have a system for virginity and chastity and purity, right? You have a system that governs people's stole in Africa. What has happened over time through colonization? We became suspicious of what worked for us. Instead of us building it into a framework or building it into a system, we did not evolve with time, and those innovations died a natural death. But we have what worked. Every family had a way to raise their children, and that's why we're still the most respectful culture across the world, right? And so what we're saying is, see, as an African, you don't have to think that what you have is inferior. Whatever has worked for you once is data driven, and that's what we need to do. We need to scale our traditional and indigenous solution into a data driven methodology. Because I mean, I keep saying it, you cannot tell me that African don't have herbal solution to some of the orthodox medicine, right? The only problem is that our people have not researched enough to know the dosage, and that's why it looks like it's not admissible in the Western world. However, when it comes to family life, we are the most hospitable race in the world. And why I am saying this, that all of us now need to embrace Afrocentric solution. If you're not yet certified, I mean, one of our goals is to to train 1,000 family life professionals across Africa every year for the next 5 years. So making 5,000 by the year 2030, right? With hoping that we'll get funding for that so that we can crash the cost of the certification, so that we can get opinion leaders, community leaders, pastors, imams to take the certification so that they can help their people, and then we can gather data for Africa. But then we've not gotten the funding, but then so it means that individuals are registering to take the course. I mean, this year already we've done, we have about 120 in trainings across team coaching, parenting coaching, and then family system engineering certification, right? And which is good, right? But we know that we will hit the 1,000 target because right now the ratio of mental health professionals to families in Africa, to individuals in Africa, is 1.4 to 100,000 people. It means that for every 100,000 people, they only have 1.4 mental health practitioners. Let's even say two to every 100,000. That person is literally going to die, right? And that's why you see that a lot of mistakes are made in our medical field today. And they'll say, oh, maybe Nigeria happened to him, or Ghana happened to him, or South Africa happened to him. No, it shouldn't be so. And then you see our people, we overrate certificate at the expense of competence, right? And so we will prioritize what came from abroad as against what we have, our indigenous solution that worked. What we need to do is to standardize our indigenous solution. I mean, we've created a psychometric process that has helped tons and tons of families, over 300 practitioners have used this practically. We've trained over 1,000, over 300 practice across 19 countries at the moment, and it's worked consistently everywhere. It's been deployed, right? And so you cannot tell me that that is not working because it's not from a Yale or it's from Harvard or something. At the end of the day, bring your own, bring our own, bring people who are problematic. Let's deploy the solution and let's see who gets, because that's the way these things work. Where I come from, they say if your solution can actually work, right, you display it. I'm willing to display everything we've taught and everything we've developed, and I know that these things work. Now, so our people must begin to understand that there is a clarion call, right? The global culture 2040 projection is saying that there are different cultures that will be going into extinction. So Europe, for example, is most likely going to lose its traditional culture because now with immigration and immigrants coming in, I mean, you can see France. France is no longer pure white. And so you can ask, what's the culture of France, for example? Because the Francophone African countries are migrating to France a lot, right? North America will retain some aspects, but will be highly globalized also because, I mean, there's a whole lot of new people coming into, I mean, if you go to Canada, you almost think that you're in Mumbai in some parts of Canada, right? And then you think you're in China in some parts of Canada. You also think you're in Africa in some parts of Canada. South America and the Middle East, mixed outcome, but still holding on to tradition. Asia and Africa will be cultural strongholds that will shape the future. That's the projection for 2040. So if Asia and Africa are the cultural stronghold that will shape the future, then you need to begin to ask yourself, what is Asia doing? What is Africa doing? Be said by 2045, Europe and North America will struggle to define their cultural identity, while Africa and Asia will be the dominant cultural influencers of the world. Now, if that is going to be a reality, then we need to build system because emotion is not going to work. If you backtrack into history, what killed us? Because Africa used to be a global power. Egypt, started writing hieroglyphics, everything, the innovation, the wonders of the world, some of them were found in Africa, right? You had the Benin Empire, the Oyo Empire. I mean, these were great empires. You had the King Mansa Musa of Mali, right? The question is their success. Why didn't they build on it? It's because the Africa naturally, we prioritize the big man as against him creating a system that can last half time. So that's where the white man seems to have a hedge over us because they build systems, they research, and they build a pipeline into the future, and they just keep replicating the same solution. But what we do is one man has the solution, then he wants the whole world to come to him. And so everybody comes and they bow down to him, they bow down to him, they bow down to him, and one day he dies. And when he dies, nobody knows the solution. And then we have to go and look for another person. And that's how we got here. We cannot repeat that mistake. And that's why if we have to understand our culture, because we are even losing our culture, many of the things you see today is not our culture. Young people don't disrespect adults in our culture, but that's already happening, right? Everybody has a phone right now. So anybody can talk to anybody anyhow. The old people also do not listen to young people, but it's got to be, we're in the Yoruba speaking part of Nigeria. They say that the wisdom of the aged and the wisdom of the child is what led to the formation of the land called Ileife. And so we need to understand that we need ourselves. Strengths intergenerational collaboration is what we need. Unfortunately, we still have the big man syndrome where everybody defers to someone and nobody can question the person. And that has robbed us of innovation because if you don't question the status quo, you cannot innovate. However, how we are raising our children, how we're raising our families have become a major issue. Over time, we need to understand that what worked in husband-wife relationship in times past needs to evolve. Culture is the way of life of the people at every point in time. There are fundamentals in our culture that must stay. There are some that must go, however. So it's very important as a family life coach in Africa. I don't know whatever country, I don't know the certification you have, or maybe you're still using native intelligence and you don't even know you are helping people, they're getting solutions, but it's taking you 3 hours to spend with them when actually a session shouldn't go beyond 40 to 50 minutes at most. And then there are ways, there are psychometrics you can deploy right now that helps you accurately diagnose cases within 15 minutes. And these are Afrocentric psychometry, data driven, that we can actually write research papers on and showcase to say that these things work with intervention, right? And so I'm going to appeal to you if you are a family life coach in Africa please, you need to create a model that works, a model that you use. I mean, we have models at the Institute of Family Engineering and Development Africa. So um, if you go to what's it called, ifedacademy.com/FESEC, you would see our premier, our signature family system engineering certification program that you can take, whether you're a pastor, whether you're an imam, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a government official, which our government actually needs to embrace across the continent of Africa. Because if we have to lead this future, I mean, everybody knows this future is going to happen. And one of the things that has worked against Africa is distraction. They will create games, we play games, they create music, they create movie, they create pornography, and our young people are consuming pornography. At the end of the day, they are culturally defeated, their identity is compromised, and they are battling with low self-esteem and insecurity for the rest of their lives. And so they will always defer to the culture that is able to upset them. And that's why we need to now teach our people how to build effective family system. Well, on that note, that's where I'm going to stop. But then what we've started to do is that we're creating the new African parenting tribe. So if you don't want to practice and you're listening to this, you are an African and you want to build an effective parenting system, what we teach here is very deep. I mean, we'll first take you through a 13-week intensive session, and then you are in a community around the year where we provide support and help you build system, because the battle globally right now is a systems battle. You cannot bring a dang gun to a nuclear war. You know you already lost the battle. Many of us are still bringing dang gun to this battle that is already gone nuclear. It's an AI war right now, but you are still using typewriter. You know you're not going to go anywhere. So if you are a parent across the continent of Africa, we're literally what we're doing is that we're bringing down the walls that have separated Africa over the years. Government is not ready. We are ready to break down those walls. So South African, Lesotho, Mozambique people, Eswatini, you guys are our brothers. The French-speaking people, you are our brothers. Every one of us, we are together, right? We're one Africa. When you see a black man, we're one Africa. And the model we've created works. You can apply it whatever country you are in. And so you want to sign up to that program. I mean, it's starting March 22nd, right? And please share this video to everyone you know who lives in Africa, right? You will learn it and then you go apply it, and but we'll monitor and ensure that, because we have to raise the children that will define that future together. However, if you want to be a family life professional, a family life coach, you want to learn how to analyze cases, accurately diagnose, and create intervention that can help any African anywhere you find them, you can go to ifedacademy.com /FESEC. But what I say is this, right? Africa's got what works. We're not incapacitated. We were not a useless continent. We were not an illiterate continent. No, because literacy is not numeracy. Literacy is your ability to replace an open mind, a closed mind with an open mind. And we're very open minded, because if we were illiterate, how did we build the greatest wall the world has ever seen in Benin Kingdom? If we were literate, how did they do the sculpture? How did they do the bronze work that was stolen to museums in Europe? Right. And so that should tell you that there's a seed of greatness in us. The only problem that has happened over time because of slave trade, we have defined ourselves by other parameters, which is not us, and our people have low self-esteem. It's time to begin to embrace what is African and embrace what works. You know, the interesting thing, many of the solutions we've created, we've deployed them for Asians and it worked perfectly, right? We've deployed them for the Latinos and it worked perfectly, because there are aspects of our culture that overlap, right? And so we have to save Africa. If you're an African family life coach, you're listening to me, you want to join this, you want to tell people about this, and if you are a parent, then you want to sign up for this new African parenting tribe, right? Regardless of whatever nation, we don't do religion, we don't do race in there. We are Africans and we know what works, how to raise our children. But if you're a coach, you need to go to IFED Academy like FESEC and plan for the next cohort, because our goal is to transform our continent and to raise highly skilled professionals that humanity deserve. Well, when I come your way some other time, I will be taking on another subject for African family life coaches, right? And I want to thank you very much for listening to me. I didn't intend for this to go beyond 15 minutes, but I've done 24 minutes. So pardon me, but I mean, I'm sure you've got gained value. There is something that works. We need to go back to what works, and we need to now create a contemporary version of it, a data-driven version of it, that can adequately solve problems for people. Thank you very much for joining me. My name is Praise Forward. I'm regarded as the best family life strategist you can ever engage. Thank you very much. I look forward to coming to your nation someday, some very soon. Enjoy your day. Bye bye.